Is love just this big, beautiful mystery? I mean, for ages, that's how we've seen it, right? It's the stuff of poems and songs, but what if it's also a science? Could there actually be patterns and chemicals and behaviors that we can measure? Well, that's exactly what we're here to find out. All right, let's get right into it. Part 1, the science of the spark. This is all about that first moment, that electrifying connection. We're talking about the powerful, kind of invisible stuff happening inside our brains and our bodies that gets the whole thing started. Okay, get this. Falling in love literally changes your brain's chemistry, and I mean literally. A 2017 study found that the initial rush is so intense that it can actually push out cravings for bad habits. It's like your brain's reward system gets so hooked on this new person that it just forgets about those other things it used to want. So, who's the main character in this little chemical play? Well, it's a hormone called oxytocin, often nicknamed the love hormone. The moment you look at someone you're falling for, your brain just floods with it. It creates this, well, it's like tunnel vision. Suddenly that person is the most interesting, most desirable person in the room, and everyone else just kind of fades into the background. It's what really focuses your attention and starts building that powerful bond. Now, if all this crazy stuff is happening in our brains, it brings up a pretty wild question, doesn't it? Could a simple brain scan actually predict your love life? I know, it sounds like something out of a movie, but you've got to hear what the research says. And the answer is, surprisingly, yes. Back in 2011, a study did exactly that. They scanned the brains of people who were in brand new relationships. Now, everyone's brain lit up a bit, but for some people, the parts of the brain tied to reward and motivation went into overdrive. So researchers waited, and sure enough, when they checked back 18 months later, which couples were still together, yep, the ones with that super intense brain activity. And it's not just in your head either. Your whole body gets in on the act. For example, some studies have shown that when a couple just stares into each other's eyes, their heartbeats can actually sync up. Seriously. And it even gets down to your sense of smell. Your partner's unique scent, their pheromones, can become one of the most attractive things in the world to you. Okay, so we've got all this chemistry bubbling away inside us. But how does that actually show up on the outside? Let's move on to part 2 and look at the telltale signs of love. The actual clues that tell you if what you're feeling or what they're feeling is the real deal. Here's a really interesting one, and it's all about language. Just listen to the pronouns someone uses. When a person starts falling in love, you'll notice they naturally, almost without thinking, shift from saying I and me to we and us. It's such a simple change, but it's a huge tell. It shows they're already thinking of you as a team, as a single unit, and that they're thinking about a future together. And that really gets to the heart of it, right? Love isn't just some abstract feeling you keep inside. No way. It's a series of actions you can actually see. You'll see it in their eyes, and you'll definitely see it in what they do. So let's break down a few of these behavioral tells. First up is that loving look we talked about, that intense, focused stare that's basically powered by oxytocin. Then there's something called attentional migration. That's a fancy way of saying you suddenly become fascinated by the tiniest, most random details about them. And here's a weird one, instinctual guarding. This is when someone might actually pull back a little bit at the start. It's not a bad sign. It's just that the feelings are so intense, they feel vulnerable and a little overwhelmed. Okay, so the spark is there. The signs are all pointing in the right direction. But how do you keep that fire going? That's what part 3 is all about. The secrets to a lasting bond. This is where we shift from that automatic, involuntary chemistry to the conscious choices we have to make for love to really last. Now, this is absolutely crucial for any long-term relationship. It's called the cycle of appreciation. Think of it like a loop. It starts when one person does an act of love, a favor, a small sacrifice. The next step is just as important. That act has to be met with real, genuine gratitude. When that happens, it makes the bond stronger, which then makes the other person want to do more loving acts. But if you break that cycle, if that appreciation isn't there, that's when things can really start to go downhill. So what about that old saying, opposites attract? Is it true? Well, the research says the answer is kind of in the middle. Having shared core values, the big stuff, is super important. But having different personalities, that can actually make a relationship stronger. I love this analogy. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You don't want two identical pieces. You want two different pieces that just fit together perfectly. But hey, let's be real for a second. Sometimes relationships do end, but that is almost never the end of the story. Take a look at this. While it's true that around 40% of first marriages end in divorce, look at what happens next. A clear majority of those people go on to get married again. I think that's such a powerful reminder of how much we need connection and how we never really give up hope on finding love. So, if you had to write down a recipe for a successful relationship, what would the main ingredients be? Well, research points to a few key things. Number one, you got to be willing to compromise. Number two, unwavering honesty. One study found that was a huge predictor of whether couples stayed together. And finally, maybe the most fun one, shared laughter. It's simple, but it creates such a powerful bond. So after all that, what's the big takeaway? I think it's that love is this amazing two-part story. It starts as this thing you can't control, right? A chemical spark in your brain. But for that little spark to become a real, lasting flame, you have to choose to feed it. And you feed it with conscious choices, with honesty, with gratitude, with compromise, and just enjoying your time together. And that brings us to one last question, and this one's for you to think about. When you really boil it all down, the laughter, the honesty, the shared values, that initial spark, what do you think is the single most important ingredient for a love that lasts? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me on this one.